The billionaire CEO, Liam Sterling, was seconds from signing away his entire empire. Across the room, his rivals celebrated in silence, their whispered words a poison he couldn't hear. They thought no one was watching. They were wrong. The shy waitress, who had been invisible to him all night, could see every treacherous word they formed. On a simple cocktail napkin, she was about to write a 7-word warning that would not only save his company, but unravel a conspiracy that had destroyed her own life years ago.
The crystal chandeliers of Aria, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, cast a golden glow over the hushed conversations of the city's power brokers. At a secluded corner table, Liam Sterling, the 34-year-old titan behind Sterling AI, surveyed the room with the detached air of a king observing his court. His custom-tailored suit was a subtle armor, and his steel-gray eyes, known for dissecting billion-dollar balance sheets, missed nothing. Tonight was to be his crowning achievement, the historic merger with Saito Innovations, a Japanese tech conglomerate that would make Sterling AI the undisputed global leader in artificial intelligence. This deal was more than just business. It was the validation of a lifetime spent sacrificing everything for his ambition. Across the sprawling dining room, Chloe Martinez moved with a practiced and quiet grace, a ghost in a simple black uniform. At 26, she had mastered the art of invisibility, a skill learned not in hospitality school, but from 5 long years of hiding in plain sight. Each night she served men like Liam Sterling, men who inhabited a world of power and privilege she once intimately understood, a world that had chewed her up, stripped her of her name and her future, and spit her out with nothing but secrets and the crushing weight of debt. Her life was a careful performance of being unremarkable, and tonight was no different. At Liam's table, the atmosphere was thick with triumph. He sat with 2 impeccably dressed Japanese men, the brothers Kenji and Hiroshi Saito. The final merger documents, hundreds of pages of dense legal text, were spread before them. Liam felt a rare surge of satisfaction. He had built his empire alone, fueled by the memory of his father's quiet failures and his own burning need to prove himself. He raised his glass, the expensive crystal catching the light. He addressed his future partners. "Kenji-san, Hiroshi-san, I must say, your team's efficiency has been remarkable. Finalizing a deal of this magnitude in under 6 months is a testament to your commitment." Kenji Saito, the elder brother and CEO of Saito Innovations, offered a smile that was as smooth and polished as the marble floor. "Efficiency is the cornerstone of our business, Sterling-san," he replied, his English perfect. "We are simply eager to begin what will be sure a long and prosperous partnership." From her service station across the room, Chloe watched the scene unfold. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but years of training had made her hyper-aware of her surroundings. Her father, a respected American diplomat, had insisted she and her brother learn skills others overlooked. For her brother, it was code. For Chloe, it was people. A severe childhood illness had left her partially deaf for 3 years, a silent, isolating period where she had been forced to master the intricate art of lip-reading to understand the world around her. Her hearing had eventually returned, but the skill remained, a secret, instinctual part of her, as natural as breathing. As the men at the table laughed, her focus narrowed. Her world seemed to mute as she honed in on the silent conversation between the Saito brothers. Kenji turned to his younger brother Hiroshi, his back to Liam, and began speaking in low, rapid Japanese. The video would later subtitle his words for the world to see. "He is completely blind to it," Kenji's lips formed, a smirk playing at the corners. "The arrogance of these Americans is astonishing. He thinks he is conquering our market, when in fact he is surrendering his kingdom." Hiroshi, younger and more anxious, glanced nervously toward Liam. "The Trojan horse clause in Appendix G. His lawyers truly missed it," he mouthed back. Kenji's expression was one of pure predatory confidence. They glanced at it and saw only technical jargon about server integration protocols. They didn't realize it grants Saito Innovations a controlling interest in his core patent, Prometheus, upon the completion of the first joint venture milestone. He just handed us the keys to his entire company. Within 6 months, Liam Sterling will be working for us. Chloe's blood ran cold. She felt the air leave her lungs. Prometheus. She knew that name. It was Liam Sterling's revolutionary artificial intelligence, the very heart of his company, an innovation rumored to be worth billions on its own. These men weren't partners. They were corporate pirates, dressed in bespoke suits, about to scuttle his entire fleet while he was toasting to their shared voyage. Her heart hammered against her ribs. To speak up would be professional suicide. It would mean losing the low-paying job that was her only lifeline. More than that, it would mean drawing her attention to herself. The one thing she had sworn never to do again. The Saitos were powerful, and if they were capable of this level of deception, they were capable of anything. But to stay silent felt like a betrayal of her own history, a complicity in the very kind of treachery that had destroyed her own family. Her father's last words to her, whispered in a sterile hospital room, echoed in her mind. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing.
Back at the table, Liam Sterling, oblivious, raised his glass again. "A final toast," he announced, his voice resonating with the confidence of a man on the brink of his greatest victory. "To a future built on shared innovation and mutual respect." The Sato brothers raised their glasses, their smiles like polished daggers. As they drank, Chloe made her decision. Her hands, usually so steady, trembled as she grabbed a clean cocktail napkin and a pen from her apron. She scrawled a few words, her handwriting a relic of a more refined past. With her face a mask of professional calm, she approached Liam's table, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. "Mr. Sterling, my apologies for the interruption," she said, her voice a soft murmur. "The chef sent a palate cleanser, with his compliments." It was a clumsy lie, a desperate improvisation. Liam, clearly annoyed by the breach of protocol, barely glanced at her. "That's unnecessary. Tell the chef my palate is fine," he said dismissively. As she placed a small, empty dish on the table, a meaningless prop in her dangerous play, she let the folded napkin slip from her tray, landing discreetly beside his hand. Her eyes met his for a fraction of a second, a silent, desperate plea trying to convey the urgency, the danger. "Of course, sir. Please, enjoy your evening." She retreated, her legs feeling like they might give out from under her. She watched from a distance as Liam, irritated, picked up the napkin to cast it aside. But he paused, feeling the texture of the pen marks through the thin paper, his brow furrowed. With a flick of his wrist, he unfolded it under the table, his eyes scanning the 7 words Chloe had written. "They are not partners, they are predators." Liam Sterling's practiced smile froze on his face. The blood drained from his cheeks. His gaze shot across the room, locking on to Chloe. She stood by the service station, pretending to polish silverware, but the raw terror in her eyes confirmed the message was from her, and it was real. Every instinct Liam had honed in the brutal world of corporate takeovers screamed that he was standing on a landmine. This invisible waitress, this ghost in a black uniform, had just thrown a grenade into the most important night of his life. Excusing himself abruptly from the table, with a mumbled word about a sudden, urgent call, he strode across the restaurant, his path precise and direct. He intercepted Chloe just as she was about to escape into the kitchen's safety. He pressed his business card into her palm, his fingers like steel, his voice a low, dangerous command that no one else could hear. My office, tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't even think about not showing up." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned and walked out of the restaurant, his mind already calculating, reassessing, and preparing for war, leaving two very confused Japanese investors at his table and one terrified waitress holding the key to his salvation and her own ruin. The next morning, the lobby of Sterling Tower felt like the belly of a whale, vast, silent, and designed to swallow lesser creatures whole. As Chloe gave her name to the security desk, she felt the familiar dread of being in a world she no longer belonged to, a world she had been violently ejected from. For 5 years, she had been Chloe Martinez, a face in the crowd, a name on a time card. Today she was walking back into the fire, armed with nothing but the truth. She was escorted to the top floor, a silent journey in a glass elevator that ascended through the clouds. Liam Sterling's office was a vast, minimalist space with a panoramic view of Manhattan that seemed to declare ownership over the entire city. He was standing by the window, his back to her, a dark silhouette against the morning light. "You have 10 minutes," he said, his voice cold and devoid of any warmth. 10 minutes to explain why I shouldn't have you arrested for corporate sabotage. Or, conversely, why I shouldn't offer you a job with a 7-figure salary. I haven't decided which yet." He turned to face her, his gray eyes like chips of ice, pinning her in place. The clock is ticking. Chloe took a steadying breath, her father's diplomatic training rising from the ashes of her memory. "I wasn't sabotaging your deal, Mr. Sterling. I was saving your company. I saw them talking," she said simply. Liam scoffed, moving to his massive desk. "I saw them talking too. They were discussing the weather in Tokyo and the quality of the sashimi. My Japanese is rusty, but not that rusty." Chloe stood her ground. "No," she said, her voice clear and firm. "They were discussing the Trojan horse clause in Appendix G, the one that quietly grants Saito Innovations a controlling interest in your Prometheus patent 6 months after the merger is finalized. They were celebrating the fact that your legal team had completely missed it." The color drained from Liam's face. The casual confidence was gone, replaced by a sudden sharp alertness. He strode to his desk and slammed a button on his intercom, his voice a low, growling, "Get my legal team in here now. I want every lawyer who worked on the Saito merger in my office in the next 5 minutes. And pull up the full contract. I want to see Appendix G." For the next hour, Chloe stood silently in the corner of the magnificent office as Liam and his team of high-powered, terrified lawyers dissected the contract. What they found was exactly what Chloe had warned, a brilliantly disguised legal bomb, couched in pages of impenetrable technical jargon, a clause so deviously worded that it appeared benign on first reading. It was, as the lead lawyer finally admitted, his face ashen, a work of predatory genius.
The lawyer, a man named Peterson, who was probably paid more than the president, was sweating through his expensive shirt. It's technically legal, Liam," he stammered. "Devious but airtight. If you had signed that document last night, we wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. They would own Prometheus within the year." Liam's gaze shifted from his humiliated legal team to Chloe, who hadn't moved. The expression in his eyes was one she couldn't decipher. "Everyone get out," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. When they were alone, Liam sank into his chair, the weight of his near catastrophe seeming to settle on his shoulders. He looked at Chloe, truly looked at her for the first time, seeing not a waitress, but a puzzle. "How?" he asked, his voice raw. "How did you know? Don't tell me you overheard them. The music in that restaurant was too loud, and they were speaking Japanese." Chloe finally allowed herself to move, stepping forward into the light. "I read their lips," she said. "And I speak fluent Japanese. It was a required skill in my former life." Liam stared at her, the pieces clicking into place. The waitress who was more than a waitress. The ghost with a past. He had to know who she was. "Who are you?" he demanded. Chloe shook her head. "I'm the woman who just saved your company. Isn't that enough?" Before Liam could press further, his head of security, a formidable man named Marcus, entered the office without knocking. "Sir, we have a problem. The Saito brothers have been trying to contact you all morning, and we've just detected a significant data breach in our R&D servers. They're not waiting. They're coming for Prometheus now." Liam's head snapped up, his focus shifting from Chloe's past to the immediate threat. He understood now. The merger wasn't the only play. It was a distraction. They had a back door. He spent the rest of the day in a whirlwind of activity, locking down his systems, coordinating with cybersecurity experts, and stonewalling the increasingly frantic calls from Saito Innovations. He also put his personal investigation team on a single task: find out everything there is to know about Chloe Martinez. The results were frustratingly thin. The name was a ghost. A social security number issued 5 years ago, a series of low-wage service jobs, a small apartment in Queens. But there was no history before that. No college, no family, no past. She simply appeared out of thin air. That evening, as Chloe was leaving her shift at the restaurant, a shift she was certain would be her last, she found Liam's black Maybach waiting at the curb. The driver, a woman with the telltale posture of a security professional, opened the door. "Miss Martinez, Mr. Sterling requests your presence. It's a matter of your own safety." Chloe knew she had no choice. She found herself once again in the back of a luxury car, speeding towards an unknown destination. This time, they didn't go to his office. They arrived at his penthouse, a place that looked less like a home and more like a modern art museum perched atop the world. Liam was waiting, a file on the table in front of him. "They tried to access your employee file at the restaurant an hour ago. They're looking for you, Chloe, and they're not going to stop." He pushed the file across the table. It was empty, save for a single photograph. "Chloe Martinez doesn't exist before 5 years ago. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Who are you?" Chloe looked at the man before her, a man whose life she had saved and who was now inextricably tangled in the danger that defined her own. She knew that telling him the truth would put him at even greater risk, but she also knew that lying was no longer an option. "My name is not Chloe Martinez," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "My real name is Chloe Davies." Liam's expression didn't change, but she saw a flicker of something in his eyes. He continued, his voice low and intense. "The Saito brothers didn't just appear out of nowhere either. Their company's meteoric rise coincides perfectly with a major diplomatic scandal in Tokyo 5 years ago, a scandal that ruined the career of a brilliant and respected American diplomat named Ambassador Harrison Davies. A scandal involving leaked classified information that allowed a then unknown Japanese company to win a multi-billion-dollar technology contract. That company was a precursor to Saito Innovations." He slid the photograph from the file across the table. It was a picture of a younger Chloe, beaming, standing beside a distinguished, smiling man in a formal setting. "Ambassador Davies was your father, wasn't he? And you were with him in Tokyo when it all happened." The dam Chloe had built around her heart for 5 years finally broke. Tears welled up in her eyes and streamed down her face. The wall of composure she had so carefully maintained crumbled into dust. "They destroyed him," she whispered, her voice choked with a grief she had never allowed herself to properly feel. "He was a patriot, a good man, and they painted him as a traitor. He was forced to resign in disgrace. The stress of it, the shame. He died of a heart attack 6 months later. My mother, who had a weak heart,
followed a year after that. I lost everything, Liam. My family, my name, my future. The Saitos built their empire on my father's grave. Liam finally understood the depth of her pain and the reason for her fear. Chloe wasn't just hiding from a professional setback. She was the sole survivor of a family systematically destroyed by the same ruthless men who now threatened his own life's work. By a cruel twist of fate, those same men had walked into her restaurant and sat at his table. A chilling realization dawned on him. "They didn't just destroy your father," he said, his voice grim. "They've been using the same tactics ever since. Corporate espionage, blackmail, intimidation. They're not just businessmen, Chloe. They're a criminal organization." He paused, the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. "And now they know you've been in contact with me. After last night, they don't just see you as a loose end from the past. They see you as an active threat."
Just as the weight of his words settled in the silent penthouse, Liam's secure phone buzzed with an urgent encrypted message. It was from his head of security, Marcus. Liam read the short text and his face hardened into a mask of cold fury. "Compromise. Your penthouse primary security has been breached. They know she is with you. Get out now." Liam grabbed Chloe's arm, his touch firm but not rough, pulling her towards a nondescript wall panel. "We have to go. They're here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "They're in the building." He pressed a section of the wall and a hidden door slid open, revealing a private service elevator. The hunt was on. Liam Sterling, a man who built and controlled skylines, was now on the run, his only ally the one woman who held the key to destroying his enemies. The forced intimacy of the high-tech safe house, a secluded estate north of the city, became their war room. Surrounded by encrypted servers and secure communication lines, their alliance deepened into something more. Liam saw past the quiet waitress to the brilliant, wounded woman beneath, a strategist with an intimate knowledge of his enemies. Chloe, in turn, saw past the ruthless billionaire to the lonely, determined man who was now willing to risk his entire empire for a justice he didn't have to seek. They worked day and night, his vast resources and power combined with her intellect and unique skills. She used her lip-reading to analyze old news footage of the Saitos, finding moments where their silent conversations revealed clues. He used his financial leverage to squeeze their business partners, creating cracks in their seemingly impenetrable corporate fortress. "They underestimated you, Chloe," Liam said one night, as they pored over financial records that traced a web of shell corporations back to the very officials who had investigated her father. "They thought you were just a diplomat's daughter. They didn't know your father trained you in observation, that your mother was a cryptographer for the NSA before she joined the diplomatic corps, that you can see patterns in data that no one else can." Chloe looked up from a complex transaction log, a small, tired smile on her face. "And they underestimated you," she countered. "They think you're just a businessman, obsessed with profit. They don't know you're a strategist who thinks 10 moves ahead, or that you would spend millions to uncover a truth that doesn't directly affect your bottom line." As they worked, the professional alliance slowly, inevitably, blossomed into something more. A shared glance that lingered too long, a hand brushing another as they reached for the same document, a late-night conversation about their pasts that had nothing to do with the case. Liam found himself captivated not just by her mind, but by her resilience, her quiet strength. Chloe, who had sworn off trusting powerful men, found herself drawn to his unwavering loyalty and his surprising capacity for gentleness. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. While analyzing Saito Innovation's internal communications, which Liam's team had legally obtained through a court order related to the data breach, Chloe found a series of encrypted messages between Kenji Saito and a high-ranking official at the Japanese Ministry of Trade. "They're planning another takeover," she breathed, her eyes wide. "A German robotics firm. They're using the same playbook, a friendly merger offer, but with a hidden clause, just like with you." But this time there was more. The messages detailed a planned meeting in Geneva to finalize the bribe that would ensure the German government wouldn't scrutinize the deal too closely. "This is it," Liam said, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "This is how we get them. Not for what they did in the past, but for what they are doing right now." Their plan was audacious. They would go to Geneva. Liam, under the pretense of negotiating a separate deal, would attend the same industry conference. Chloe, using a new identity created by Liam's security team, would be his translator. Their goal? To obtain undeniable proof of the bribe, a recording that would be admissible in international court. The risk was immense. If their cover was blown, the Saitos would not hesitate to eliminate them. The climax of their dangerous game unfolded in a grand ballroom overlooking Lake Geneva. The air was thick with the scent of money and power. The Saito brothers, confident and oblivious, sat at a private table with the corrupt German official. From a distance, Liam watched them, a listening device hidden in his cufflink. But the room was too loud. He couldn't get a clear signal. He looked across the room to where Chloe was positioned, and she gave him a subtle shake of her head. It was no good. The plan was failing. Then Chloe began to move. She picked up a tray of drinks from a passing waiter and approached the Saito's table with the practiced invisibility of her old life. She offered them drinks, her movements smooth and unremarkable. As she leaned in to place the glasses on the table, a tiny, almost invisible camera hidden in her brooch captured every whispered word, every silent agreement. She lip-read their entire criminal conspiracy in real time. But as she turned to leave, Hiroshi Saito's eyes narrowed. He grabbed her wrist. "Wait," he said, his voice low. I know you." Chloe's blood turned to ice. At that moment, Liam strode over, his face a mask of casual authority. "Is there a problem, gentlemen? My translator was just ensuring your comfort." The Saito brothers looked from Chloe to Liam, suspicion dawning in his eyes.
"Your translator bears a striking resemblance to a diplomat's daughter we once knew," he said, his voice like silk-wrapped steel.
"Does she?" Liam smiled coolly. "Well, I hire for skill, not for family connections." He placed a protective hand on Chloe's back. "And Ms. Dubois here is the best in the business. Now, if you'll excuse us." He guided Chloe away, but they both knew their cover was blown. They had the evidence, but they were trapped. As they moved towards the exit, they saw Saito's security moving to block their path. Just as panic began to set in, the ballroom doors burst open. A team of Swiss federal agents, flanked by Interpol officers, flooded the room. At the head of the team was a man Chloe vaguely recognized. It was her father's old colleague from the State Department, the one man who had secretly believed in his innocence but had been too scared to speak up. Liam had contacted him, provided him with their preliminary evidence, and gambled that the man's conscience would finally win out. "Kenji Saito, Hiroshi Saito," the agent announced, his voice ringing through the silent ballroom. "You are under arrest for bribery, conspiracy, and, on behalf of the United States government, for your connection to the death of Ambassador Harrison Davies." The Saitos was stunned. As they were led away in handcuffs, Kenji's eyes found Liam's, his face contorted with pure hatred. "You have no proof," he spat. Liam simply gestured to Chloe, who stood beside him, no longer a waitress, no longer a ghost, but a woman who had just reclaimed her life. "Actually," Liam said, "we have every word." Weeks later, they stood on the balcony of Liam's penthouse, the Manhattan skyline glittering before them. The world's financial papers were filled with the story of the Saito Empire's spectacular collapse. Ambassador Harrison Davies had been posthumously exonerated, his name and honor restored. "It's finally over," Chloe said, a quiet sense of peace settling over her. "Your father's name is cleared." "Our fathers," Liam corrected gently. His investigation had uncovered evidence that the Saitos had also been involved in a corporate espionage plot against his own father's company years ago, a betrayal that had haunted the Sterling family for a generation. "We both got justice," he said. He took her hand, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "I offered you a job once, special advisor. I was hoping you might reconsider the position. Permanently." Chloe smiled, her heart full. "Is that a merger proposal, Mr. Sterling?" She teased. Liam's expression softened into something she had come to cherish. "It's a partnership proposal," he said, his voice low and sincere. "For life. I've discovered that my company's most valuable asset isn't an AI patent, it's you." Chloe looked at the man who had seen her when she was invisible, who had trusted her when he had no reason to, and who had fought for her family's honor as if it were his own. For the first time in 5 long years, her future wasn't something to hide from, it was something to build, with him. "I accept," she whispered. Liam pulled her into a kiss, a promise of a new beginning, sealed against the backdrop of the city they, in their own way, had conquered together. Their worlds had collided in a moment of crisis, but from the wreckage, they had built something stronger and more real than any corporate empire, a partnership founded on justice and a love forged in the fires of redemption.